Welcome. My name is Jesse Lyon, and you're listening to the Tripping Off podcast. There's a lot of stories in the news about Facebook changing its name to Meta and this idea of the Meta-averse. What does it mean? Is it safe? Should you be concerned? Well, today I'm going to weigh in on the mental health implications of the Meta-averse and what you should be aware of with these upcoming changes to the internet. I'm also joined by Matthew Johnson, who's an IT developer and tech guru, and he weighs in on some of the exploitative measures that Facebook has taken in the past and some of his concerns about what they might do in the future. So stick around and we'll tell you exactly what you should be worried about when it comes to Web3, the Meta-averse. And I'd love to know your opinion, so stick around to the end to find out where the poll is so you can tell me what you think about all these upcoming changes.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I have no idea where this is going to go. And I think that's kind of the point. So for anyone who's new to Matt, Matt has been behind the scenes of everything with Lyon Mental Health, built the website, built the store, built the chat bots, built the interactions. This guy is one of those, I call him the wizard of the internet because he does stuff and I don't know how he does it, but he does it and it works. So I wanted to bring Matt on because there's been a lot of conversation about Meta. And I have a very different perspective than Matt. And we should argue about that a little bit today. Matt, thanks for being here. How are you?
Yeah, of course. Great. I mean, I don't want to argue an opinion. I think we're both entitled to it. And I think, in the past, I've been wrong and right, maybe about some things. And I mean, I think really Meta is the next evolution of a series of events that I don't necessarily agree with. So I think, we'll definitely dive into that and get your take, my take, and see where we converge. Do we meet in the middle? Do we sway each other's opinions, or do we just agree to disagree?
I think one thing we can agree on is you can't stop the Zuck. So
you can, but I'm looking at details.
So here's kind of where I'm coming from. I don't think you can stop it from happening. So anyone, I got two thoughts. I don't think you can stop it from happening, and I think that I have felt in certain periods of time that I've been on the more conservative, not politically, but conservative as in hesitant to jump into new ideas, concepts, applications, because I'm like, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. And so I'll typically be sort of reserved on them. But I've seen so much value from taking a different sort of standpoint because I jumped into TikTok so early. And that's worked out really well for me. We'll see when I get my channel canceled. I might be singing a different tune, but right now I'm pretty all aboard the change train. For those who maybe don't know, the idea that we're talking about, right, is Facebook changing its name to Meta. And behind that is this idea that there's going to be this virtual reality world sort of powered by cryptocurrency, powered by NFTs. It's all kind of blockchain stuff. You live in this other sort of world inside the internet, inside of a VR sort of system. And you just kind of do everything from in there. You go to work, you shop on stores, you interact with your friends, you play games, and it all kind of happens inside this world. There's a lot of cool things about that idea. There's a lot of terrifying things about that idea. My thought is I don't think you can stop it. I think that absolutely is the next generation of things. Will it look exactly like Mark's vision? No, pretty sure it won't. But personally, I was just thinking about it even before recording this. And I was thinking, as you've seen with stuff during the pandemic, everything's been on Zoom. I mean, even you and I are recording this now through Zoom. I think virtual reality, living kind of in a virtual space, is going to become more and more ever present and more tangible for the common consumer. And I think that's just the next iteration of how we connect as people.
Or are you done?
Yeah, I'm finished monologuing.
No. I actually really want to touch on one of your last points, though, because this is, I think, the biggest gripe I have with the metaverse and this whole shift is you said something along the lines like, right, the common person being able to access things.
Yeah.
My issue with it is that that's not inherently true. It's the narrative that I think people are forcing on media and trying to, get the word out about certain things, but I don't think that's inherently true. So I'm going to back it up and kind of cover some certain things that are like leading up to the metaverse and then getting into the metaverse itself. So
Okay.
when we look at like cryptocurrency, that wasn't something the common person could really get into. It was controlled by people that had resources to start mining Bitcoin. And that's where obviously the explosion came from. Obviously there are altcoins now, but Bitcoin was, kind of like the innovator, the pioneer, the big coin that people got excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I couldn't just fire up our PC and really start mining and see anything from it because we didn't have the resources to do so. So what that really led to was, as we see with everything, even in the common marketplace for finances, those who have the resources and the powers are able to reap the benefits at the kind of exploitation of others. There are other people that are smaller that want a piece of it. And of course, you'll get those success stories that people blow up in the media, like, oh yeah, I'm a billionaire in Bitcoin, yes, that holds some weight, but it really doesn't translate to anything because apart from El Salvador, nobody's really taking that currency. Like, what are you going to do? Buy a bunch of NFTs? Like, that wealth doesn't actually translate into much of anything apart from what you can sell it to somebody else. So anyway, I think that's a big thing with like crypto is that you get those who have been able to control the marketplace. And even when we look at like the evolution of like Ethereum, right? You see that they're kind of shifting models and you're going to get more of like a pool where people will pool resources, et cetera, but you still have people that have the majority of the stake in that pool that are still going to reap the benefits. So yeah, like we might get a little bit of action, but once again, it's just those who are on top will stay on top. There's really no way to breach that. And so that's been my big gripe in terms of like people saying, oh, it's going to decentralize the system, it's decentralizing finance. But it's just another system. It's the same bullshit, the same, oh, can I say that?
Yeah, you're definitely allowed to say that, yeah. Podcast canceled.
It's the same BS that, we just see in the stereotypical, standard traditional finance market on Wall Street. Like what really differentiates somebody on Wall Street who controls a hedge fund, versus somebody who controls majority stake in a coin. And that, to me, and same thing with kind of the stock market too. And this tangent, I know we're on the metaverse. I'm going to connect it all together, right?
We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. Just stay with me. But you get people like Elon Musk who says one thing about a coin and it either skyrockets or tanks. Like the volatility in it as well is something that's extremely unsettling to me. And so then I'm going to kind of segue this before I go too deep down that rabbit hole. I'm just establishing my position, so
we should probably also say this is not financial advice. You cannot, don't sue me, please.
Yeah, don't sue him.
Great. Now that I put that idea in their head.
Yeah.
Thanks. This is the last time I have you on the podcast, by the way.
That's fine. On many people's regret.
Oh no.
But so then that kind of like shifts into NFTs. Like really what, okay, it's a stupid question, but like really what are NFTs? When you think about it, it's just digital art. There's no real novelty about it, and it's a bit disgusting. Like I forget exactly what the figures were, but I want to say it was like a rare Picasso or Van Gogh was going for like 30 million on auction. And then there was a pixel art NFT going for 11 million at auction. To me, that doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, it's half the price and still 15 million is a lot of money, but like, really? Something that is just pixel art, you're now almost putting the same ballpark as Van Gogh, Picasso. I forget exactly which one it was. That's my gripe. It's just people that have this inflated currency, crypto, right? This inflated figure that really, it's no different from me picking up sand and saying this is worth $10 million. People have this inflated currency that they're placing on, basically NFTs and assigning it value that holds no real water versus something like Picasso, Van Gogh that actually is tied to people's money and, like tangible finances. So then where does this come into the metaverse?
Okay.
I'll stop there. If you want, you can jump in. rebuttal.
I
And
think
then we'll
I
come to
think not rebuttal. I think I totally agree with you, but I think my overarching opinion is just people have been doing this since forever. It's like there's always been people who, whether it's lucky or by birth, right, have been on top, right? And now there are the certain cases where, somebody gets lucky, right? And so there's kind of this, like, there's these beings that be up at the top, and every now and then someone gets lucky and makes a hit single or something, and they kind of rise their way to the top two, or they do something that's pretty out there, pretty interesting, pretty novel, and they rise to the top. Someone pays them a lot of money for what they do. And usually it's those who make friends with or find favor with sort of those who are at the top. Like, hey, I've got this great idea, and you've got a lot of money, so can you give me a lot of that money and I'll give you a part of this big idea? I mean, I think human beings have been doing that for a very, very long time. I just think we're changing it from maybe being sort of physical and based in reality to doing the same thing that humans have always done, just in a digital world.
Yeah,
And I
and
don't think you can stop it. I think that's how it's
no,
going to be.
yeah, and maybe that's just like, my own principles and like, I wouldn't say morals, but yeah, my principles of that. Like, I socially, I take a lot of issues with people that exploit others, right? And so yeah, I just see this as like a digital method of exploiting more people. And
Ooh, so this is dark for you. This is like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
great. Now we're starting the digital exploitation of the human race, like
oh
by
yeah,
the
definitely.
elite. Oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
is yeah.
That's why I
Adjusts
think we
commie
should.
glasses. Yeah. No, I feel this.
Um, so
Some
why
political
this
angst
then
here.
sort of ties into the metaverse for me is, once
Okay.
again, so you look at crypto, you look at, like I said, people that had the resources, the ability to be on top, have stayed on top.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the shift of metaverse, right? Is that you look at somebody like Facebook that's now trying to really breach into it. I mean, we've seen it here and there, like, in Fortnite, I'll get into that, examples of metaverse, but um, you have Facebook, like one of the largest companies in the world, obviously has the resources. Like, nobody's expecting you and I to jumpstart the metaverse. That's
No.
not realistic. But you have to then ask yourself, what does a company like Facebook have to gain from the metaverse? And it's everything, right? They're already selling your data. They're already selling like all of the little components about your life to those who will pay them the top dollar. And it's just another method for them to exploit to get more money. It's not a philanthropic, it's not uh, a good charity type of case that they're really looking to do. It's not a mission for them. It's just another way for them to get more money, to generate more revenue. And so I think a lot of people are placing distrust in that because, the end goal for Facebook has always been cloudy. What Mark Zuckerberg tells you is never true or accurate. It's to save face for his company and for himself, to limit liability. But we know Facebook is shady. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no way around it. Facebook is Facebook. You
Right.
can try a different social media platform, but it's still not the same environment. And so yeah, like, you then have to bend the knee to Facebook to, take part in these services. And yeah, I just see the metaverse as the next evolution of that. And I don't inherently trust that it will be a decentralized commodity like we've sort of seen with crypto, to the extent that people are hoping it might be. Because ultimately, if Facebook is going to be controlling this environment, so this is the other thing too, right? Is when you look at the metaverse, to me, the metaverse should really be one single entity. For it to be effective, the metaverse
Right.
should be a single entity. It shouldn't be multiple metaverses. I shouldn't have to, swap goggles or swap suits
No,
or
it
whatever.
should be one.
It should be one. So
And
Facebook is pioneering this. Yeah,
decentralized. That's the whole point, right?
right.
It shouldn't be owned by one person, because then, talk about, Mark Zuckerberg and a God complex already. Imagine if he owned the literal universe. Listen, as a mental health professional, that makes me a little bit nervous. Two things. Anybody who gets that much power, it turns them crazy. Anybody who wants that much power is crazy.
Yeah.
You can quote me on that. Jesse 2021, mark it down.
Mark Zuckerberg it down.
How many conspiracy theories are there about Mark Zuckerberg's the Antichrist? Like, what?
Too many to count.
Too
But
many to
okay,
count. No, I agree with you on that one. Yes.
have you seen Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Have you read it or seen it?
Watch the movie. I haven't read any books or comic books. I didn't know they existed, honestly. I'm sorry. Bad nerd.
It's not a comic book, it's just a book, but yeah.
Oh,
Um, but
whoopsies.
anyway, so like in Ready Player One, that's sort of, it obviously predates all of this, so it's, almost future telling. It foresaw kind of this whole thing play out such that you
Yeah.
have IOI in Ready Player One. Well, you have two competing companies, right? You have whatever the original one is, I forget. God, I'm a terrible person. But that one goes down, and that's what the whole like competition is about. But then you have this IOI that is trying to like basically control the metaverse by winning the competition. And so I think that's just kind of what we're seeing here. Facebook is paving the way, so they're ultimately controlling the metaverse, but it really should be opened up to others to not control, but to collaborate, in a way. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, it's going to have to be big tech. It's going to have to be a Facebook, a Google, a Microsoft, what have you. But I think putting
Yeah.
all of the power in one's hand is a bit too much. And that's where I take issue with the metaverse and adopting it. And that's like before even getting to peripheries. Like you said, access to the common person. I mean, right now it depends on which headset you're looking at, but like if you look at like an Oculus Quest 2, I think they're about like 300 plus.
Well, and I did see that, Facebook was talking about offsetting the price of that by like giving people the equipment.
Yeah. Which,
Oh,
right. So then you have
that's
to
and then you owe me, and we're gonna put you in this little tank and make you work.
right.
I'm definitely seeing a difference, not in our views about the metaverse, but in just the spheres of the world that we live in. So yours very much from a tech and sort of finance perspective, and me from a mental health perspective. So my side, I'm over here thinking about, we've gotten so far into technology, into social media, to a point where we're starting to see some of like the ramifications emotionally and psychically for those things that we do every day. I mean, how scrolling on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook really can cause some problems for you emotionally and with your mental health, increasing anxiety, increasing depression. Imagine taking that and then giving you the opportunity to never come back to reality. And so I often talk about this, and I teach this to my interns when we're dealing with cases. An easy way to diagnose and to think about anxiety and depression is, it will be to the extent, and you can notice it when you recognize a distance between expectation and reality. Whenever there's a difference between expectation and reality, that gap, however big that gap or small that gap, is the extent to which you see anxiety and depression. So if I go out on the road and I'm expecting to be safe in my car, and then I get into a car accident, I was running around with this idea that I was always safe in my car. It's my nice little box. It gives me autonomy and independence and confidence. It's my status symbol. And then, bam. Well, I was living in this false reality, not realizing cars are inherently dangerous. And so that distance comes crashing down around me. We call that trauma. Now imagine if my whole world is lived inside the meta. That really starts to create some gaps and some spaces for people never to come back to reality, sacrificing their physical health, sacrificing their mental health, sacrificing their relationships. And so I think what we've seen is certain things change with social media, the internet, to try and promote to greater or lesser success, the health of the individuals who use it. And I think we're about to see that happen with the metaverse, and with more and more VR stuff, more and more virtual things like this. We're going to get farther and farther away from reality. And there's going to be certain people who end up being the example of, ooh, this went too far. There's going to be some casualties for that. And you're seeing that, I think, from a hardware and currency economy perspective. I'm seeing it from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, and I'm trying to avoid the whole political thing as well, right? I'm trying to keep politics out of this, but
I always try and keep politics and spirituality out of it because that's just the dead end. That's not my realm.
Yeah, but like that's obviously still another fear. It's like you look at, unfortunately, how social media has allowed for like radicalization. And I mean, like, I won't get too deep into it, but like we've seen how the internet has connected communities together in that way, in semi-nefarious ways where,
Yeah.
it otherwise back in the 1800s, you'd have to send a telegram to somebody and send it over, a ship to sail the seas. And like it would just never happen.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the next evolution too, is when the metaverse begins to evolve into this really dark thing. That there's going to be people are going to try to police it, but realistically, with everything involved with the internet, there's no real policing it. And I think that's where you begin to kind of teeter the line. Okay, well, what does the metaverse really look like? Is it a technology company controlling it? Is it going to be something like the UN getting involved at some point, basically saying like, listen, as a global entity, we need some sort of control over this because we have certain standards and expectations for the human race that we want to, keep in check. We want to maintain the status quo to a degree in this digital universe.
Yeah. There's going to have to be like meta police.
Right. It's just,
It's going to be weird.
like, it's going to be, very weird, very much that sci-fi-esque thing where
Yeah.
it's going to try to mirror everyday life,
Yeah.
but it's going to exacerbate it. I think that's
Yeah.
really like you're saying, it's going to take things and it's going to make people hypersensitive to certain issues, to certain topics, to certain feelings, emotions, etc. And yeah, that fear of how do you get out of that? How do you withdraw? How do you create a safe space for yourself inside and outside of the metaverse?
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of people struggling with identities right now, with social justice, etc. But those things will persist in a digital environment.
Yeah.
And how do you combat that? How it's I just think it's a very dangerous move, not just from like a financial side of things, but like a human side of things. That humanity will be, I think, like I said, it comes back to exploitation, and people will prey on that. Companies will prey on these insecurities in, people's habits that may otherwise be a bit more muted at home. They can now exploit online because it's easier. You have easier access to, fuel somebody's gambling addiction or alcoholism, but like in a weird digital environment where they don't get that same high, but they get those same maybe like sensory vibes. I don't know. You know more about that, but
it gets weird. And you're right. Like there's this interesting trying to simplify this research, right? So it's very interesting the way that the brain responds with serotonin and dopamine, right? So if the outcome of something 100%, like if I go to the pantry, there is a cookie in there and I'm going to eat that cookie and that's going to be great. 100% probability that you will get that cookie and consume it. You get a certain level of dopamine, right? From that experience. Cookies are great. I mean, at least hope everyone agrees on that, but probably not. Anyways, so now let's say that there's an obstacle in your way. Like you got to go to work and make a paycheck in order to get your cookie. And so it raises the chances to like 75%. There's a 75% chance you're going to get that reward at the end of the day. Well, what is shown is that actually that 75% chance is more rewarding than the 100% chance. The risk in there is more rewarding. And there's actually an optimal risk. When you get to 50-50 shot, that is the highest dopamine response that you can get. Now, let's translate this to the metaverse. If I am certain, right, because it's all computer generated, that I'm going to get this positive experience, it's not going to actually be as rewarding. And it's also going to be tough to incentivize people in some ways. It's going to be tough to incentivize people to do things that are not enjoyable in order to get rewards, right? Now, I think one way that we can ensure that this happens is people are inherently frustrating. So as long as there are people in the metaverse and I have to interact with people, there's this inherent risk, right? Like with relationships, you ask a girl out, you're like, oh man, she might reject me, like, but I've been working out at the gym, so I look pretty good. I don't
In
know.
my experience, they just reject me. It's
Yeah.
100% at that point. It's not 50-50.
Yeah. What are the stats on that one? What's the dopamine response? But you get what I mean. I mean, we're making fun of it, but having to work is really good for your mental health. Doing things that are not enjoyable is really good for your mental health. Being bored is really good for your mental health, honestly, which is something we're getting further and further away from. Now, that being said, I think the way that I sort of think about the metaverse and kind of its evolution and iteration is a little bit different. I'm thinking about it kind of like the Wild West, right? When we've got all this stuff going on the eastern border of America, is where we are. There's all this stuff and people getting frustrated, right? It's like, these big corporations, they own this, they own that, and I can't get any mobility, so they kind of move out into the wild. They're like, I'm gonna move to California, gold rush, or I'm gonna go to the Midwest and start a farm with my family, and there's opportunity, right? We're kind of in this space with Meta, whatever metaverse stuff is. And well, there were a couple things that you saw when you were moving into sort of this Wild West cowboy scenario. There was a lot of exploitation. There was a lot of outlaws and bandits who couldn't be policed because it was so big. The Wild West was so big. And so you're going to see that with the metaverse. It's going to be so big that we don't know all the ways that it can be exploited. So you're going to have some pretty shady characters who will probably become pretty infamous as being the bandits of the meta. You'll see that happen. Now, I don't think that negates that there's some incredible opportunity here. Like, I'm thinking about people who are limited by their mobility will be able to do stuff in the metaverse that they couldn't otherwise do and live probably much more enjoyable, mentally healthier lives because they're afforded opportunities that before they weren't. Or I think about the housing crisis that we're experiencing. I mean, God, the rent that I have to pay is ridiculous. I know you being over in DC area, my God, I can't imagine. Right. So imagine if you could, do your job, but you live in who the heck knows where, out on your little piece of land with some trees around you and a mountain or whatever. It's gorgeous. Nobody around, but you log into your Meta and you go to work every day. And so the commute is 15 seconds while you boot up your PC. That's pretty great. And so I think that the opportunities that are afforded are worth pursuing. But you're definitely going to have this space. And I think we're in this space right now where because there's so much we don't know, it's so vast that there's some real dangerous problems. But I think as human beings, we always are fighting those problems because those problems live within us. There's always going to be those dark parts of ourselves that want to exploit others. There's always going to be the depression, the anxiety that lives in us, and the tools that we use tend to exacerbate those. And then we have to fight them, have to overcome them.
Yeah. I think that autonomy and restriction is what will make or break the metaverse, unfortunately. And I think right now the way we're seeing it is pretty docile, such that it's largely entertainment based at the moment.
Yeah.
When you look at Fortnite, like it's been concerts. Even Roblox did that Zara Larsson concert I was telling you about.
I'm a big Roblox fan. Which is pretty great. If no one's played Roblox, you should definitely. I mean, it's free. You should try it out.
Try it out.
Yeah,
it's better than Minecraft, I think. No, I don't
know. It's more meta than Minecraft.
I hate the voxel. I don't like the voxel part of Minecraft.
Well, I don't know what voxel means.
Like the very blocky nature of everything. There's no like graphics visually for me. Just put me off. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh boy. Yeah. So entertainment wise though, I'm even like looking at things like K-pop is starting to make this transition. I even saw on Fox, what's it called? I don't know. I saw like an advert for the Masked Singer, but then there's like another show now where they're doing like a virtual like avatar of the person, like they're performing. There's a virtual,
Oh.
but like K-pop is doing this too, where like one group in particular, like their thing is sort of the metaverse, where
Hmm.
they're very much like the real human component of the group, but they also have digital equivalents, like virtual equivalents. We've seen that in League of Legends, where they've taken their performances, like KDA is one of their now virtual groups, if you will. Obviously, there's very much the human component behind it. We
Hmm.
haven't like fully digitized it where it's just AI making music, but you have human components that are now being represented in a digital form. And so I think that's a relatively harmless way to go about the
Yeah.
metaverse.
Huh.
Um,
That's blowing my mind. I didn't know that that was taking place in like League of Legends and Roblox and stuff.
yeah,
I knew
so
about Marshmallow inside of Fortnite. I knew that
yeah,
there's a concert for that. That I don't know. Am I getting like older to where I don't understand why someone would really be excited about a virtual experience when you could go to an actual concert?
because when you go to actual concerts, you die. Is that too soon?
I I went to EDC this weekend and it was fantastic. I had a great time.
You
I
you
couldn't
didn't go to
imagine.
World, so
Well, anyway, you're not
uh,
wrong.
so
Next episode about Astro World and Travis Scott.
yeah, I mean, he did a Fortnite concert.
No
You know,
way, really?
that was arguably safer than Astro World,
Oh my god,
but
that's
uh,
that's dark, but it's real.
so no, I mean, I think yeah, I think the virtual equivalents offer their own unique perspectives. Like, you know, you have the ability to take on forms. Like, you know, there's usually like microtransactions with everything
Yeah,
that are associated with it. And so, like, you know, you get like little things for your avatar, et cetera, that are exclusive to the events. You know, the Fortnite ones have been actually really interesting. Like, they've built like some really cool environments that like you literally could not do in the physical world. You
yeah,
obviously don't get the same like sensory response from that, but
sure.
it's still something larger than life that you're exposed to. And I think it's also just the fact that like it can be well, not really asynchronous in a way, but you know, the fact that like regardless, as you said, of your mobility, whether that be due to like physically what your body is capable of doing,
Yeah,
or just the fact that geographically you don't live remotely anywhere near where an event is taking place, you can now enjoy it from a
true.
virtual environment that's more interactive or engaging than just a Zoom video, right?
Hmm.
Like what we're doing right now feels very analog in a way. Like it's weird to say, but like this is sort of the new analog experience of a digital world.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like this
Like,
this feels more human than a lot of other things right now, and this is pretty non-human.
yeah,
Like
like
we're meeting
we're
virtually.
right, we're talking to like 2D images on a screen,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just it's very yeah, blah. You know, it
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
diminished because of where we're evolving and growing in the digital space.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so yeah, I think that's kind
Huh.
of the reason concerts like you're seeing that shift. You know, I mean, it's not like a massive shift. I don't. I think Coldplay should because they're the ones that want to be like carbon neutral. But you know,
You got a
you're
point. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
yeah, they're oh, we want to be carbon neutral, so we're gonna do things, but just do it virtually. There you go.
It's pretty carbon neutral.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So
yeah.
Matt, given the opportunity to today, if you could Thanos snap your fingers, metaverse is gone, it will never be a thing. Would you do it? Do you think we should head that way, or do you think squash it? Forget
Uh,
forget if you think it's inevitable or not. Do you think we
yeah.
should just avoid it?
I mean, similarly to Thanos, like the more I live, every passing day, I sympathize with Thanos. Um, but no, I mean, I think you know, in terms of Thanos's perspective of like saving humanity from itself, I think yes, definitely, 100%. We should just kill the metaverse. Um, I
Wow.
think I think we're just going to go down a very, very dark rabbit hole, and it's going to either go like not one of two ways, but there's just, I feel like, very few ways that it's going to go, like, it's going to be executed on. It's such that somebody like a Facebook is just going to continue exploiting, everybody that becomes a part of it,
Mm,
or it's
mm,
going to devolve into, as you said, like, we have all these dark parts of ourselves.
mhm.
I think that's just going to come out in a metaverse environment if it's not controlled in a way. And then kind of, okay, well, if you start controlling things, then it becomes that whole like 1984 George Orwellian like
Yeah.
dystopia where like, well, we can't even be free in a metaverse and like in a virtual environment. It's like, you know, but like you have to like save humanity from itself because we're messed up.
Yeah, we
Um,
are. I'm on the opposite side of it. I think it's something that we have to do. I think that it's the way things are going to go. I think there's a lot of benefit to it. But I think just as like, like I've said, like as we are humans and people, we're always fighting against the dark parts of ourselves, the dark parts of humanity. And so we'll have to continue that fight. Our tools to continue that fight will be different. But I think you can't stop progress. You can't stop change. And so it's like, this will be a change for sure. But I think it's a change that has to happen. But as with any change, we should walk into it with some real respect, trepidation, and empathy for fellow human beings. Now, is that something you find very readily? No. And so there'll have to be just a few good people who maybe keep trying to push that. But I think it's those few good people who keep trying to push that have kept humanity going in some pretty dark times.
yeah. How much time do we have left, by the way?
Well, you added that robot to the see, this is what happens with Matt, right? So he's always got some tool. So I always do my video recordings through Zoom, and then he added this tool that made Zoom think that there's a third person in here. And so now it's like you only have 2 minutes left, two
Oh,
minutes,
no.
25 seconds before the recording cuts off. If it's
What if,
just the two of us, we can go for forever. So I have 2 minutes left with you before it cuts off. We have to restart or end the episode. 40
okay,
minutes
well,
is a pretty good amount of time.
I just, I'm gonna stop the recording,
Okay.
and then we just edit this part out of the actual podcast part
Oh,
in the
it's
video.
it's staying in here, baby.
Oh, okay, it's really awkward then.
It's pretty
Okay,
pretty meta.
I'm trying to make it stop. It's not stopping. Okay, we'll have to reboot this.
Remember that
Uh,
time you let loose the chat bot inside of
oh
our
yeah,
group chat?
that was
That was
great.
bad.
I missed
I
that.
I was in a therapy session. My phone goes off literally 45 times because this chat bot got loose inside of our group chat. Because
Great.
this is probably why Matt has a healthier fear of the metaverse than I do, because he knows how dark it could go. I'm blissfully ignorant. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a terrible thing. Maybe it's a wonderful thing. I think maybe I'm genuinely happier. I don't know.
Okay, so back to the mental health aspect of things.
Yes.
We talk about the metaverse and how it unlocks people's ability to, meet with people and go and do things in this environment. So what is your potential fear of like certain people with certain traits regressing to a purely digital environment and then basically eliminating the human component of their lives such that like, okay, well, people make online girlfriends or whatever, like they have online relationships. But if said person is on the other side of the world, but you're only connected via the metaverse,
Mm.
that will never realistically come to fruition unless there's like some drastic, self-sacrifice from one party or the other. But like,
Honestly, yeah, bound to happen. 100% will happen. However, my argument kind of always goes back to, I don't think that that's new for people to do. We've always had hermits or monks or nuns or the weird wilderness man or woman, the person who like makes some weird cult in a commune in a compound somewhere. Like these things have always existed. My thought is, if it exists inside the metaverse, which is a little bit more known, it could actually be a little bit easier to sort of recognize, identify, and police this stuff because it's a little bit more, well, it's almost, I mean, I was going to say tangible, but that's actually the opposite of what I mean. it's a little bit more controlled. It's a little bit more of a controlled environment. Like, God forbid, like you made the joke about Travis Scott in the concert, but it's like, honestly, it is safer in some ways in the metaverse, like imagine if someone wanted to do some like cyber terrorism. Well, if everyone's spread out over the entire globe and we're not all congregated in like one big stadium for some football game and we're just all viewing it online, in some ways that is kind of safer. The danger becomes inside the mind of each person. And so I think you're going to see how important mental health therapists are going to be, how important education and understanding about mental health will be for the individual. But I think in some ways, certain things will be safer. But you always run the risk of exploitation.
Here's the thing, I'm going to pitch this to you, and when it becomes a reality and you make a ton of money from it and sell out, just remember me.
Should I stop recording to keep this off the record?
I probably should.
No.
How about you make some sort of approach then to somebody like a Facebook? I mean, if they're going to be the ones pioneering this in the mental health space, because as you're saying, mental health is going to be ever important in this type of environment. So
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, ensuring there are mechanisms or controls in place that facilitate that, but still meet, obviously, the very much like regulatory guidelines, such as like HIPAA compliance, or ADA, such that, you're instrumental in forging that path, because people will need it and they might feel more comfortable in that environment, a more digitally interactive environment. And if a therapist can control their environment beyond just the physical, tangible world that we live in, it could unlock some pretty interesting things. It could be scary, but like it could be really interesting. Like you're very limited to the finite resources you have in this physical realm. Imagine what you could do in a digital space where you're starting to break down those barriers and offer more to clients in that type of environment.
One of the biggest problems that I have right now is purchasing enough office space for my employees to work in. That would not be a problem. It could mean that my therapy sessions become so much cheaper because I don't have to pay for literal paper, literal printer, literal gas in my car, literal space in order to meet my clients. It could all be Meta. And talking about HIPAA compliance, what's more HIPAA compliant than if all of my therapy notes were NFTs that can only be held by one person with a wallet? Like, that's an interesting idea, that I think I already very much forefront of my brain. I think that this is a space that we absolutely will move into. My thought is, okay, if I can't avoid this is the next iteration of what it means to be a person. I'm going to be the first to set up a therapy shop in that, because we absolutely need it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, right, I think you're definitely more willing to take that leap. As you said, like being a pioneer, right? You've got to be the first one out there in the gold rush to set up the town, to set up the bar where people are going to go drink at, the end of the day when they haven't found any gold, etc. Like, right? Like exploit people.
Gets real angsty.
Whereas for myself, I would probably be a lot more reluctant. Also, I get really nauseous. Have you used virtual reality?
Oh, I get terribly sick.
Yeah. See, I get really nauseous in those places, like in those environments. So for me, that would be another reason, another barrier in terms of entry, where I would be slow to adopt it for my own physical limitations. Some people don't have that issue. I do. So I'm gonna chill out here in the real world, and just enjoy it.
See, which is funny though, because I would kind of disagree with you on that point. I think that you don't. Like, you have forged ahead in so many new different ways when it comes to tech, ways that I don't know about. And then you're like, Jesse, we should do this. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I didn't even know people were doing that. But you do it in a way that works for you, in a way that is accessible to others, and that minimizes loss and risk. So like, I could totally see you being the person who, you don't use a virtual headset, but you're in VR chat, Roblox, Fortnite type metaverse just through your normal screen, which is a medium that you're used to.
Yeah. And I think that's where obviously we're not privy to what Facebook intends on doing and
Yeah.
in the larger scale of things, but truly, if it wants to be a virtual space with virtual headsets and whatever those peripherals look like as we evolve,
Yeah.
as you're saying, does the digital medium of a screen begin to fade away? Like where does that stand? As I'm saying, like this is almost becoming the analog of the digital world. So,
Mhm.
how long could people like me adopt that technology and still feel inclusive enough to reap the benefits or to get the joy of being in a metaverse, while others are adopting more, I won't say aggressive, measures, but
Mhm.
if you're going to have like a haptic suit and all different types of things that can actually influence you, you know sight, smell, hearing, like all within a digital universe. And I don't
Yeah.
really want to, I'm cool with just the audio and visual aspect. um do people like me get
Yeah.
left behind? Do I become the next dinosaur like our parents in the digital age, where I get forgotten? I don't know. That's not necessarily a fear I have, but it's just, and it goes back to our point, what does the metaverse look like? Because if it's not a single entity that is kind of like all encompassing,
Yeah.
I think there are going to be a lot of issues just because people come from all different walks of life, and people are going to be excluded one way or the other. uh, it's just how minimal is that going to be?
Yeah, well, I think what you're talking about is another it's like the ADA but for the metaverse, right? Like what about those who have nausea symptoms when they put on a VR headset? Like you now would become sort of the handicapped of the metaverse where it doesn't matter if you have legs or not, and I mean this in the most empathetic and non-discriminatory way, right? But it's like you'll see different things become more challenging. So like where maybe a person could navigate around in the world, the real physical world, if they were blind, that becomes kind of impossible. Like how would somebody who has a visual impairment access the metaverse? It changes things. And so there will be issues where you see the same problems that people had and have, just they express themselves in a different way. Just like with early adopters and late adopters, you've always seen that in any type of product development. You've got those who love the bleeding edge and those who are really happy with last year's, 5 years ago's model, right? And so you kind of fall maybe a little bit more on the late adopter in this kind of realm than some others. But, I think that a company who, even if they are monetarily motivated, needs to address those people who don't want to put on a VR headset. And I think if anyone's smart and wise about their business investments, they will address people like you or me who get nauseous with a VR headset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, especially for you, it's like, okay, well, he is enthusiastic, he is energetic, he wants to adopt it, but he can only really be connected for so long before he's just like, I got to get out of here
my
before I have to
eyeballs
unplug.
falling
Yeah.
out of my head. Oof, hurts.
Um, yeah. So, and I heard there are different ways. I think it was, something like the inner ear, that they were working on in terms of like combating that, like
Oh,
tricking
they'll
your
figure it
brain.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm curious, and maybe you don't have enough or a lot of experience with it, but I was reading something the other day, and this is a slight tangent, but going to be connected.
Okay.
Uh, People with like facial deformities. I was reading an article about like how Bond villains, like the majority of them have some sort of like facial deformity,
This is
and so
true.
it's created this notion that people with facial deformities are like villains or the bad guy, or there's something intrinsically wrong with them. And so people that obviously are
Yeah.
just your run-of-the-mill person, it's not nefarious, is having a lot of issues fitting into society because people have been conditioned to have this narrative that like even Scar from Lion King, right? Like
Oh,
we
yeah.
have characters all throughout entertainment that have facial deformities, and therefore people see it as a very negative thing. Um, in a way, I mean, the metaverse does begin to allow people to adopt a certain, is it id, right? Is that right? I don't know. You'll get into this.
The id is sort of the primal drives and desires. Ego is the one in the middle that chooses, and super ego is like the rules and morals.
Ah, shit. Then I don't know. I'm out of my depth. Anyway, you can get into this. But
Okay, all right.
they can adopt a different identity, not a different identity.
Persona.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Persona is the word.
that's a Jungian concept.
Yeah. Where, they can become a different version of themselves. They don't have to necessarily become a different person, but they're no longer judged on what they look like to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be beneficial.
I agree. I think which is funny because you like that part. That's the part that scares me the most. There is there is absolutely something incredibly imperatively important, and we've never gotten away from this. Now this is one thing that is changing that we've never experienced before. There have been different ways that we've tried to divorce ourselves from reality, but we've never gotten this close. And that's the part that scares me, because as people, as much as I work with people, you can never get away from being a physical thing. Now, maybe this is 200 years down the road where we do finally divorce ourselves from our physical beings, and then you and I become NFTs. So like Jesse is an NFT that doesn't exist in the physical space. I'm just a digital being. Now
Somebody owns my grandfather.
So that becomes weird. But like, that's the part that makes me nervous, because I do see a lot of pathology when people start to distance themselves from who they are physically. And I know a lot of people, as they probably listen to this, are thinking very specifically about gender and sexuality. I'm actually not really talking about that. I'm talking more about when people start to neglect their physical form, not sleeping, not eating, not drinking water, not exercising regularly and routinely. We don't have a good way of manipulating our internal chemicals and neurochemistry other than physical experiences, physical interactions. And so that's the part that makes me actually really nervous. I'm glad that, people can express themselves in their own unique way without facial deformities or physical handicaps. That's great. But it does concern me that this allows us to lose ourselves in ways that we haven't been able to lose ourselves before. Before this, it's just been drugs. That's the only way to really lose yourself very deeply. This gives you a way to do that all the time.
So then I wonder, and this is, once again, I don't trust Facebook to go down this route, but
No.
Wouldn't a healthier environment or system look like almost a reward-based system where physical interactions with the real world reward you with game time or interaction time in a virtual space, in a way, such as you're saying, like taking care of yourself, going to the gym. If I go to the gym 5 times a week for 30 minutes, that should reward me with X number of hours or something in a virtual environment, so that we're ensuring that your basic human needs are being met, that you're not neglecting them or foregoing them in pursuit of something.
Here's the thing. I think human beings will do that intrinsically. Like we're so consumed with ourselves. There will definitely be a metaverse club where you have to submit a physical picture of yourself, that you're a cute looking person or a buff looking person that you go to the gym in order to get into the club. Human beings are gross like that. So absolutely, I could see that being a thing. Sorry, I know I interrupted, but
no,
yes,
yeah.
I think we'll find some solutions.
I wasn't even going there, but yeah, I guess that's probably what it will realistically look like. Mine was just more, I don't know.
Yours was starting to sound like some creepy government Overwatch, like, we're watching how much time you spend outdoors. I don't know why the government sounds like an old smoker, but she does.
That's exactly what the government is.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think it's definitely going to be interesting to navigate.
Yeah.
Both from, as you're saying, like a mental health aspect, right? We're obviously going to tie this into mental health. But also for me, a fear of just technology in general. Yeah, I adopt things, but I'm also very cognizant of the exploitation of those who are in control. Like I said, I think we're seeing this with crypto. We're seeing this sort of with NFTs. Like, I mean, admittedly, NFTs died there for a while. Like, it's been resuscitated, but NFTs were wildly popular when they first came out. And then people went, wait a second, this is stupid. It died. And then it got rehabbed. I don't know by whose work, but like they weren't talked about anymore. People weren't really interacting with them or engaging with them or selling them. And then it blew up again. So, it's also hard to say what is and isn't going to last. I mean, we've seen this with all different types of technology. Some things make it, some things don't. I think the metaverse will. I think crypto will in a way. I think it might diminish over time. It might not. I don't know about NFTs. I think blockchain itself has a very real application to a secure digital world. I just think right now it's being exploited for people's monetary gains. That's all.
Yeah. I agree. I think you'll see it change and evolve. I mean, it's here to stay, but it won't look like, it definitely won't look like it does today in 100 years. I mean, neither do computers. I mean, the computers we had are definitely not the same type of computers we have now.
Yeah, 100 years ago, they were
very different. They were very different. It's an abacus.
It was just that kid in the corner of the classroom. No offense to the kids in the corner of the classroom.
Hey, Johnny, what's
he knows it.
Math homework, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Well, that's my thoughts. That's your thoughts, and I'm curious to see what people think about it. I would love to have some feedback. Send me an email, send me a DM, something. Let me know what you think. I mean, this is a topic we're going to have to talk about more, and so I'm sitting there on a weekend thinking about this stuff, and I'm like, I got to talk about it. I'm one of those people who has to now give their opinion on everything, shamedly and openly. So here's my 2 cents of an opinion.
You know what?
Done.
Because I'm involved.
Yeah.
Let's create a poll. I'm going to create a poll. And you're going to push the poll. And we're just going to figure out what people actually think too. They can submit their feedback, not only in the comments, but we can get like actual metrics.
Oh, all right. So there will be a poll, lyonmentalhealth.com.
Yeah. And
we'll put it on there.
There'll be a link.
There'll be a link. There'll be something. All right. lyonmentalhealth.com poll. What are your thoughts about the metaverse? There'll be a bunch of answers. I want to know. Maybe there'll be something nice. You fill out the poll. There'll be something that goes along with it. So let me know. We'll figure that out. Yeah. But Matt, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate your opinion. So we could talk this out and figure this stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, it's always fun. Like you said, just having a chill environment to connect with friends again, just have fun. And
it's good, man. It's good.
Talk about things that are topical that I think are very important in your day-to-day work, especially as things evolve. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for being here. lyonmentalhealth.com. Let me know in the poll, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.